So the sun is shining here now. I hope the sun is shining in your heart and your mind, wherever you may be, in this beautiful, joyful creation. I picked some cards this morning from the Osho Zen Tarot that I'd like to share with you all. And I'm also going to read 40 Verses on Reality by Ramana Maharshi. It's a very powerful reading. I've done a couple of other videos this morning. I'm kind of just feeling to sit in this space, in this beautiful room that I have here, this kind of outside. I'm pretty much sitting in the garden. And there's just some glass that separates, appears to separate the garden, and so yeah, and the sun's coming out and it feels like spring. It certainly feels like things are birthing. So I picked some cards to read, to share with you all. And I've got my smoothie here that I made in a video before this one. So I picked 4 cards. Maturity, breakthrough, receptivity, and conditioning. I'm going to read maturity first, which is this one, and it kind of looks like spring, doesn't it? You know, everything is blossoming, beginning to blossom. Of course, I'm not sure where it is, and I guess what I should do is look at the front of the book to find it. On that note, I think I might need to do that. Right at the back. This figure stands alone, silent and yet alert. The inner being is filled with flowers that carry the quality of springtime and regenerate wherever he goes. There's the inner flowering, and the wholeness that he feels affords the possibility of unlimited movement. He can move in any direction, within and without. It makes no difference, as his joy and maturity cannot be diminished by externals. He has come to a time of centeredness and expansiveness. The white glow around the figure is his protection and his light. All of life's experiences have brought him to this time of perfection. When you draw this card, know well this moment carries a gift for hard work well done. Your base is solid now, and success and good fortune are yours, for they are the outcome of what has already been experienced within. The distinction between the grasses and the blossoms is the same as between you not knowing that you are a Buddha and the moment you know that you are a Buddha. In fact, there is no way to be otherwise. Buddha is completely blossomed, fully opened. His lotuses, his petals have come to a completion. Certainly, to be full of spring yourself is far more beautiful than the autumn dews falling on the lotus leaves. That is one of the most beautiful things to watch, when autumn dews fall on the lotus leaves and shine in the morning sun like real pearls. But of course it is a momentary experience. As the sun rises, the autumn dew starts evaporating. This temporary beauty cannot be compared, certainly with an external spring in your being. You look back as far as you can, and it has always been there. You look forward as much as you can, and you will be surprised. It is your very being. Wherever you are, it will be there, and the flowers will continue to shower on you. This is spiritual spring. Maturity. Couldn't ask for a more beautiful card. They're all beautiful. The next one is breakthrough. The predominance of red in this card indicates that at a glance that the subject is energy, power and strength. The brilliant glow emanates from the solar plexus, or center of the power on the figure. And the posture is one of exuberance and determination. All of us occasionally reach a point when enough is enough. At such times it seems we must do something, anything, even if it later turns out to be a mistake, to throw off the burdens and restrictions that are limiting us. If we don't, they threaten to suffocate and cripple our very life energy itself. If you are now feeling that enough is enough, allow yourself to take the risk of shattering the old patterns and limitations you have kept your energy from flowing, that have kept your energy from flowing. In doing so, you will be amazed at the vitality and empowerment this breakthrough can bring into your life. To transform breakdowns into breakthroughs is the whole function of a master. The psychotherapist simply patches you up. That is his function. He is not there to transform you. You need a metaphysiological and psychology of the Buddhas. It is a great adventure in life to go through a breakdown consciously. It is the greatest risk because there is no guarantee that the breakdown will become a breakthrough. It does become, but these things can not be guaranteed. Your chaos is very ancient. For many, many lives you have been in chaos. It is thick and dense. It is almost a universe in itself. So when you enter into it with your small capacity, of course, there is danger. But without facing this danger, nobody has ever become integrated. Nobody has ever become an individual, indivisible. Zen or meditation is the method which will help you to go through the chaos, through the dark night of the soul, balanced, disciplined, alert. The dawn is not far away, but before you can reach the dawn, the dark night has to be passed through, and as the dawn comes closer, the night will become darker. The next one is receptivity. Receptivity represents the feminine, receptive quality of water and the emotions. Her arms are extended upward to receive, and she is completely immersed in the water. She has no head, no busy and aggressive mind to hinder her pure receptivity. And as she is filled continuously, emptying herself, overflowing and receiving more, the lotus pattern or matrix that emerges from her represents the perfect harmony of the universe that becomes apparent when we are in tune with it. The Queen of Water brings a time of unboundedness and gratitude for whatever life brings, without any expectations or demands. Neither duty or thought of merit or reward are important. Sensitivity, intuition, and compassion are the qualities that shine forth now, dissolving all the obstacles that keep us separate from each other and from the whole. Listening is one of the basic secrets of entering into the temple of God. Listening means passivity. Listening means forgetting yourself completely. Only then can you listen. When you listen attentively to somebody, you forget yourself. If you cannot forget yourself, you never listen. If you are too self-conscious about yourself, you simply pretend that you are listening. You don't listen. You may nod your head, you may sometimes say yes and no, but you are not listening. When you listen, you become just a passage, a passivity, a receptivity, a womb. You become feminine, and to arrive, one has to become feminine. You cannot reach God as aggressive invaders, conquerors. You can reach God only, or it will be better to say, God can reach you only when you are receptive, a feminine receptivity. When you become yin, a receptivity, the door is open, and you wait. Listening is the art for becoming passive. Conditioning. This card recalls an old Zen saying, a story about a lion who was brought up by sheep and who thought he was a sheep, until the lion captured him and took him to a pond where he showed him his own reflection. Many of us are like this lion. The image we have of ourselves comes not from our own direct experience, but from the opinions of others, a personality imposed from the outside replaces the individuality that could have grown from within. We become just another sheep in the herd, unable to move freely and unconscious of our true identity. It's time to take a look at your own reflection in the pond and make a move to break out of whatever you have been conditioned by others to believe about yourself. Dance, run, jog, do gibberish, whatever is needed to wake up the sleeping lion within. Unless you drop your personality, you will not be able to find your individuality. Individuality is given by existence. Personality is imposed by the society. Personality is social convenience. Society cannot tolerate individuality because individuality will not follow like a sheep. Individuality has the qualities of the lion. The lion moves alone. The sheep are always in a crowd, hoping that being in a crowd will feel cozy. Being in the crowd, one feels more protected, secure. If somebody attacks, there is every possibility in a crowd to save yourself. But alone, only the lions move alone, and every one of you is born a lion, but the society goes on conditioning you, programming your mind as a sheep. It gives you a personality, a cozy personality, nice, very convenient, very obedient. Society wants slaves, not people who are absolutely dedicated to freedom. Society wants slaves because all the vested interests want obedience. I know it's backwards for you guys, but it says 40 verses on reality. I've shared this a few times, I don't know how many. It's very direct teachings from Ramana Maharshi, and I'm going to share them with you now. And I suggest that you listen, not just with your ears, but with the whole of your being. Listen with your heart. Listen with an open, quiet mind. Listen with your entire body. And listen with your being. And see what happens. I might read some things twice. And I'll probably pause every so often to allow the words to drop in to your being. Awareness is all. The seer, the seen, and the apparent. The triad, God, soul, and world, is the creation of the ego and disappears with the ego. Speculations about God and world avail nothing. Self-realization is the heart's cry of all. Form and formlessness of God depend on the ego's conception of itself. The world is the body, inclusive of the 5 sheets, for without them the world cannot be conceived or perceived. The 5 sheets are the 5 senses that we experience the world with. The world is what the mind conceives through the senses. The world arises and sets with the knowledge of it. Both have their source in the self. Any sincere worship eventually leads to realization. The dyads and triads are supported by the One, which can be discovered by inquiry. Knowledge and ignorance are interrelated. Real knowledge arises by inquiring, for whom both knowledge and ignorance occur. Knowledge and ignorance are interrelated. Real knowledge arises by inquiring, for whom both knowledge and ignorance occur. Not to seek the self, which is the source of both knowledge and ignorance, is a real ignorance. True knowledge is self-effulgent. It is neither knowledge nor ignorance. Knowledge of diversity is ignorance, yet it is not apart from the self, like the shapes of ornaments which are not apart from the gold. Knowledge of diversity is ignorance, yet it is not apart from the self, like the shapes of ornaments which are not apart from the gold. You and he exist when the I exists. If the root of the I, the One, is found, you and he will also shine as one. You and he exist when the I exists. If the root of the I, the One, is found, you and he will also shine as one. Past and future are only the present when they occur. Thus, The present alone exists. Time and space do not exist apart from the self. To those who have not realized, the I is of the size of the body. To those who have, it is limitless. To those who have not realized, the I is of the size of the body. To those who have, it is limitless. To those who have not realized, the world is confined to the space it occupies. To those who have, it is the limitless subterranean of the world. Arguments about destiny and free will are carried on by those who have not realized. Those who have are free from both. Arguments about destiny and free will are carried on by those who have not realized. Those who have are free from both. Seeing the self is seeing God, so the self is not other than God. To see God is to be absorbed by God. God shines in the mind, but to know God, the mind has to turn inward. Although the world disappears with the I continues to exist in sleep as in waking. Neither the body nor the self says I. Between them the ego rises and ties them together. Neither the body nor the self says I. Between them the ego rises and ties them together. The ego takes a body and accomplishes various acts. It takes one body after another till it is destroyed by vichara. The ego being the all, surrendering it is surrendering all. The ego being the all, surrendering it is surrendering all. To destroy the ego, the source of its emergence has to be sought and retained as the real state. The seeking has to be deep within oneself, like diving to recover a precious object that has fallen into deep waters. The vichara is not muttering I, but sinking the mind into its source. On reaching the heart, the I subsides, and a real I manifests in its place. Having extinguished the ego, the jnani has no other purpose in life but to remain immersed in the bliss of the self. Although thou art that, say the Vedas, not to investigate into one's nature and abide as that is mental weakness. Self-knowledge is not duality. The self being single, it is itself both the subject as well as the object, disputing the nature of the self without attempting self-realization merely constitutes delusion. Thaumaturgic powers are like dream magic. They do not entrap the self-realized. That is to say, miraculous powers are dream magic. They do not entrap the self-realized. It is not necessary to go on meditating, I am that, for one is always that. It is not necessary to go on meditating, I am that, for one is always that. Non-duality prevails always, whether as the world or as the self. The sense of doership reaps the fruits of action, karma. Karma ends when the doer realizes his true nature. Bondage and liberation are mere notions in the mind. They cease when he who is bound is inquired into and realized. Bondage and liberation are mere notions in the mind. They cease when he who is bound is inquired into and realized. True liberation has no form and destroys the very ego which distinguishes it between one kind of it and another. Without awareness of reality, can reality exist? Because this awareness, reality, itself free from thought, exists as the source of all thoughts. It is called heart. How to know it, how to be as it is, thought-free, in the heart, is to know it. This verse and the next form the invocation which customarily precedes spiritual and poetic works in Indian literature. It may be addressed as a particular deity such as Ganapati, the Deva in charge of poetic effusions, or to the Devas in general, to a favourite Devi or to the Guru, or to one or the other of the three major divinities. Those who have an infinite fear of death take refuge in the feet of the Supreme Lord, who is without birth and death. Can the thought of death occur to those who have destroyed their I and mine, and have become immortal? Those who most identify themselves with the body are the people who fear death the most. Seeing the dissolution of the body, they deduce their own dissolution to be simultaneous with it, and dread the terrible unknown that lurks behind it. Their only hope of safety lies, therefore, in the worship of the Almighty Lord, who alone is deathless. But those who through practice of sadhana, or spiritual discipline, have transcended this false identification, no longer have bodies to be the victims of death. Even the thought of death does not occur to them. They are vidas, bodiless, although they continue to occupy a body. This verse also implies that by taking refuge in the Lord, these fear-torn people will, in time of course, so progress spiritually that they will be able to destroy their sense of I and mine and attain immortality, since the death of the ego will evidently destroy death and the thought of death. Because the world is seen, we have to infer a common cause, a Lord possessing unlimited powers to appear as the diversity. The pictures consisting of names and forms, the seer, the canvas, the light, all these are He Himself. The 40 begins here. To understand Bhagavan's meaning, we have to use the key with which he supplies us in the invocation. There he declares reality to be the thought-free awareness which dwells in the heart. Here he brings in the world in order to meet, on their own ground, those disciples who do perceive a real external world. He is saying something like this: you see a world and ascribe an omnipotent creator to it, but as we have already seen, this creation is only an appearance, a manifestation of that awareness of which we are speaking. It has no more reality in itself than have the pictures projected on a screen. From the heart, thoughts spontaneously rise, like vapor from the ocean, and turn into a kaleidoscopic world of names, forms, colours, sounds, smells, and other impressions. These are in it, or on it, as on a canvas of which the heart is itself the seer and the sight. Pure consciousness, or pure mind, is thus the pictures, the screen, the seer, and the light, or sight. All schools of thought postulate the fundamental triad: God, soul, and world. Although all three are manifestations of the one, the belief that the three remain eternally three lasts only as long as the I or ego lasts. To destroy the ego and remain in one's own state is best. Most religions are based on the assumption that the triad mentioned in the text is eternal. Bhagavan rejects this assumption as being the child of the ignorant ego, which mistakes itself for the body. The I am the body notion compels the admission of an individuality, jiva, a world and its creator, as three distinct, perennial, coexisting entities. Bhagavan, as we have seen, perceives a single existence, of which these three are an illusory manifestation, which, however, vanishes the moment the eternal I is apprehended and the ego perishes. Of what avail to debate whether the world is real or unreal, sentient or insentient, pleasant or unpleasant, extinguishing the ego, transcending the world, realizing the self, that is the state which is dear to all, and free from the sense of unity and duality. The same line of thought continues. Destruction of the ego is a sine qua non for the realization of the self within the heart. It brings to an end all speculation about reality and unreality, God and world, whose true nature will be revealed in actual experience. This is the most blissful, attainable state, and beyond the plurality of the illusory world. If the self be with form, God and the world will be also. If one be formless, oneself, how and by whom can their forms be seen? Can there be sight without eyes? The self is the I, the limitless I. This refers to the jnani, who, although having a body, sees himself as bodiless and formless, and so cannot see God, or in fact see anything with form. The ajnani, the non-realized, perceiving himself as a body, takes God also to be a body, and worships him in all sorts of material, formal representations. Yet the fact remains that even he perceives everything through his own formless self, which we have granted to be only the seer, the only knowledge there is, the limitless I. Those who condemn idol worship forget that they themselves worship material symbols and icons, and attribute to God forms, dimensions, positions, even sentiments and sense perceptions, exactly as they do to themselves, having no experience or conception of a formless, omniscient spirit. They feel literally lost at the idea of worshipping something not represented in a form. God thus appears according to the degree of the realization of oneself. Can there be sight without eyes? Means that without consciousness there can be no knowledge of anything. Just as without a lamp, none of the objects present in a dark room can be seen. Can there be a world to an unconscious man? The body is in the form of and includes the 5 sheaths. Is there a world apart from the body? Has anyone without a body seen the world? The body is a complex structure containing a large number of instruments or organs which the self, as ego, uses for a large number of purposes, including, among others, those of hearing, smelling, seeing, thinking, feeling, memorizing, and reasoning. The materials out of which these instruments or parts are made vary from the grossest to the finest. The Shastras, the scriptures, have arranged them in 5 groups. To each group 1 sheath or kosher is assigned. The kosha dealing with purely physical matters is called the annamaya kosha, the sheath of food. The pranamaya kosha, the vital sheath, looks after the fivefold functions of the vital energies: breathing, assimilation, generation, excretion, and locomotion. The manamaya kosha, the mental sheath, contains the faculties of mentation. The vijnanamaya kosha is the sheath of the intellectual and reasoning faculties, of scientific and philosophical thinking. And last is the anandamaya kosha, the sheath of bliss, or the causal sheath, which stores up within itself the karmic seeds of every birth, and is concerned with that state in which profound peace is enjoyed by the dreamless sleeper. This kosha is made of the finest substance, sattva, which in itself is happy due to its freedom from grossness and to its close proximity to the blissful self. Thus the term body includes all these koshas, whose appearance and disappearance cause the appearance and disappearance of all objective and subjective perceptions. Assumption of a body is therefore necessary for the world's enjoyment, and the body owes its existence, as we shall see in the next verse, to the five sheaths, the five senses, which are the properties of the mind. The world is but the fivefold sense objects, which are the result of the five senses. Since the mind perceives the world through the senses, is there a world without mind? Through the sensory organs, lodged in the five koshas, the senses display before the mind a variety of objects: physical, vital, emotional, mental, and intellectual. Apart from the five sense perceptions, there are all sorts of other internal senses which also arise from the mind, work through the mind, and are understood by the mind, such as the senses of time, of space, of I and mine, and the artistic, ethical, religious, and spiritual senses, for instance. Since all these senses form the world we know and have one common origin, which is the mind, the world cannot therefore be other than the mind. Although the world and the awareness of it rise and set together, it is by awareness that the world is known. The source from which they both rise and into which they set always shines without itself rising or setting. That alone is real. This verse is reminiscent of the invocation and confirms the previous verse, which makes awareness the criterion of existence as well as the source of the world. Awareness always shines as the limitless I, mentioned in verse 4, and the eternal knower. It goes without saying that the appearance of the world is simultaneous with the awareness of it, and disappearance of the world simultaneous with the withdrawal of that awareness. For the fact of the awareness of the world is the fact of its existence. We cannot affirm the existence of an object without first affirming awareness of it. Therefore, awareness is the only reality there is. Just allow yourself a breath, conscious breath. Shall I read a bit more? In whatever name and form the nameless and formless is worshipped, herein lies the path of its realization. Realizing one's truth as the truth of that reality, and merging into it is true realization. All roads lead to Rome. All sincere worship comes from the heart and leads to the formless God in the heart. To believe that one's reality is the same as God's is an important step towards the realization of Him as pure consciousness and a process of merging into Him. How many millions of innocent human beings would have been spared the horror of religious persecutions throughout the centuries in the name of God, and how many wars would have been prevented had this truth been accepted as the one truth underlying all religions, the basic world faith. The dyads and the triads rest on the basic one. Inquiring about that one in the mind, they will disappear. Those who see thus are the seers of truth. They remain unruffled. The dyads are the pairs of opposites, knowledge and ignorance, light and darkness, happiness and misery, birth and death. The triad is the triple principle of the seen, seer and sight, object, subject and perception, of the former by the latter, as all the numbers stand on and originate from the first number. So are the dyads and triads based on, arising from, and of the same nature as the one seer, the perceiving mind. He who realizes the world as such retains a uniform serenity in all conditions of life. I'll read some more another time. Let's just take a few moments now to be with all of this. Breathe into your stomach. being with whatever is arising in the body. Much love and many blessings.